Well, I am so enthralled. That's not a U word. I got to come up with a U word.
Enthralled.
No. I'm so enthralled with what Tim and Susan Madden are doing that I'm actually going to give them half my talk time. So I'm just going to invite them up. I'd like them to share with you about Be the Power of One, and then we'll go from there. So you guys can maybe grab this microphone.
It's just.
Oh, it's just going to be you?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'll be your assistant.
Oh yeah, thank you. And you know, we often hear that Tim and I don't talk enough about Be the Power of One, and I think it just is so close to us that we forget sometimes. So thank you, Linda, for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
I am passionate about education. I'm passionate about it because study after study shows that education leads to less poverty, less disease, and less war. And it's the latter that I'm most passionate about because I truly believe that education leads to peace. So with that in mind, it's easy to see in a country where only about half the people can read or write, Haiti is the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere and one with a long history and a recent history of dictatorship and government corruption. Tim and I travel there each year, and this year will be our 5th. While we're there, we live as they do. We live in some of the people's homes there, and we take showers out of 5-gallon buckets, and we forego technology for the week, and for the most part, we learn to appreciate the water that comes out of the tap when we get home. We've gotten sick off the water there, which, believe me, in a place where there's no electricity and it's pitch dark at night and the latrine is 20 yards away, it's no fun. We always have crazy travel stories to bring back with us, like the time that it took us 10 hours to drive 26 miles to get food because we had 4 flat tires. Or the time that we rode 3 on a motorcycle, no helmets. Or there's plenty of other stories to tell, which I won't bore you with now. But you get the picture. But enough of that. Today I'd like to share a little of how our nonprofit, Be the Power of One, came to be, what we have accomplished, and our vision for the future. All that in 10 minutes, I promise. I could honestly say that Be the Power of One was conceived in the back seat of a taxi cab. You see, in February of 2009, I was in Miami, Florida. I was there on business, attending a week-long conference, and it was a beautiful resort. It was kind of far from the airport, but the sessions didn't really grab me. I wasn't sure why I was there. I was all the way across the country, away from my family for a week, missing them. And then the answer came to me on my trip back to the airport. I got to talking to my cab driver, which I often do, and scares Tim sometimes. I had just read the book 3 Cups of Tea, and I was inspired by the story about Greg Mortensen, who opened schools in Afghanistan. And I got to talking to my cab driver about it, and I found out he's a pastor at a church in Miami, and he has started a school in Pinon, Haiti, his hometown. So we kept in touch through email, and he was soon asking me to join him on his summer trip for his program that he has at his school in Haiti. It didn't really work out for us that year, you know, kid issues and dogs and business and all these other things that life does to you, so we didn't go that year. But then in January of 2010, a devastating earthquake hit Haiti. and we heard the news, and we were touched by it because of our connection there. The earthquake killed over 200,000 people. It demolished most of the government buildings and the schools there. A quarter of the government employees were killed, so they had basically no government working at that time. And it was then we knew we had to do something, and it was then that we began the process of creating our nonprofit. And the goal of our nonprofit was to promote education in developing communities. We learned that while in Haiti there's an education that's compulsory and free for K through 12, that's really a misnomer because only 10% of the schools are public schools. They don't have enough facilities to provide for all the children, so that means 90% of the schools are private, funded by churches or nonprofits. In July of 2010, we made our first trip to Pignon, and that's a trip that changed our lives forever. We were able to tour Port-au-Prince, where the devastation from the earthquake occurred, and we saw that devastation firsthand. And the only cleanup we saw from all the rubble were people with wheelbarrows and 5-gallon buckets on their heads. And it was hard to imagine that they would ever make any progress there. We saw the remnants of the presidential palace and other government buildings that were demolished in the quake. And then we began the trip to Pignon, which is 90 miles away, down a mostly dirt road that can take anywhere from 4 to 12 hours, depending on how reliable the vehicle is. When we got there, our first surprise was when Pastor asked us what we'd be doing with the kids in the summer program the next morning. When we replied we'd just be helping the teachers or whatever they needed us to do, he said, no, 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 you don't understand, you are the teachers. And so with no teaching experience between us and no knowledge of the Creole language, we put together a teaching plan, a lesson plan for the next day, and we were so confident, and our plans were organized, and we'd get there, and we'd know just what we were doing, and we got to the school, and we were greeted by the wonderful sound of these children singing to us as they saw us approach, and we knew it would be a cakewalk. We met our assistants, and it was about 6 young men that only one spoke very little English. And there were about 50 kids in the room. It was small, it was manageable, there was no power, it was about 90 degrees and 90% humidity. A little uncomfortable, yeah, but nothing we couldn't handle. Then about an hour into it, with 3 hours remaining, we ran out of things to do. You know, you could only do the hokey pokey so many times. Well, we got through the rest of the day and made better plans for the next day. Then word got out around the kids in the neighborhood that we had arranged for food, that we had toys and toothbrushes and toothpaste, and we were giving things out, and soon the numbers swelled. And I would guess that by the end of that week, we had over 100 kids in this small classroom. And at that year, it was smaller than this room here. I really have no doubt that we learned much more than the kids did that first year. So we continue to return each year, and by the end of the week last summer, we counted over 200 kids in this small room with no power, no air conditioning, very, very hot. But this is a time for the kids to just enjoy being kids, and a time for the parents to enjoy a little break from them. This is a time for crafts and music and games, and mostly just spending time with them and letting them know that somebody cares. And really, the hokey pokey never does get old. What we brought back with us was invaluable. Seeing firsthand how these kids want to go to school, seeing how little they have has made the kind of impact that you don't get from seeing it on the news or seeing it on TV, and we're able to share that with anyone who will listen. Each year we meet with the teachers to find out what their needs are. They work incredibly hard, and we have so much respect for them, and they only earn about $75 per month. And we wish we could support them more. We found that it takes about $12,000 annually to run the school, and that includes salaries and uniforms and food and books and supplies and pretty much everything they need to run the school. And as it is now, we send monthly support that covers about half the cost, and we also arranged with another nonprofit in Haiti to provide food for the school, because sometimes that meal is the only meal they have for the day. And we also worked with our local Rotary clubs here and in Tracy to have a water well drilled at the school, and this has proved just invaluable to the school and the community. One of our greatest accomplishments, and what we're most proud of, I think, is establishing our Higher Education Scholarship Fund. Our first recipient is Jean-Renel Joseph, who we met the very first day in Pignon. And he was the young man that spoke very little English. He just completed his studies at the Windward Island School of Evangelism in St. Vincent. It's run by a U.S. organization, and studies are conducted in English. So he now speaks near perfect English, and he's just an invaluable asset to us on the ground as a contact in Pignon. His education has changed him and his family for generations to come. So with Jean-Renel back in Pignon now, we've made the decision to let him run the summer program. He's much more organized than we are, much more qualified, and it will allow us to return to Pignon during the school year to see how the school is actually run firsthand. And as we share this plan with some of our donors, we know that we've made the right decision. The money that usually goes to support the summer school program will be put to much better use to help run the school. And in the future, we will expand our reach, always keeping the focus on education. Whether it's here in the U.S. or abroad, our purpose is to promote education in developing communities. And we hope that you will join us in this effort. Thank you.
Yeah.